This is Rudy Klancnick, VP of Sales and Marketing for Sports in Action, and this is One-on-One with ADC Partners.
Hi, this is Dave Almy of ADC Partners, and I'm going to let you in on a little secret. High school football is a really big deal in Texas. Okay, fine, maybe that's not that much of a secret, but with the whole Friday Night Lights thing. But still, it's a really, really big deal. And no one knows that more than Rudy Klancnick, VP of Sales for Sports in Action. In his role, Rudy creates partnerships for Dave Campbell's Texas Football, a brand that may be more Texas than the Dallas Cowboys, Dr. Pepper, and Whataburger all rolled up into one. We talk about the unique opportunities and challenges associated with developing partnerships at the high school level, the essential role that authenticity plays in that, and the amazing legacy of Dave Campbell, a true Texas legend. So thanks for listening and enjoy. All right, so let's set the stage here, Rudy. Sports in Action is the parent company of Dave Campbell's Texas Football. For those people who are listening who are potentially unfamiliar with the name Dave Campbell, can you give us a start with who he was and what was Texas Football Magazine?
So Dave Campbell's Texas Football was created by the founder, Dave Campbell, in 1960 at his kitchen table in Waco, Texas.
We were not even blinks in our parents' eyes at this point.
No. And Dave had a great idea. He was a sports editor at the local paper at the Waco Trib. And He had a great idea because no one was really covering college or high school football in a comprehensive way. They would touch on it at UT or Texas A&M, but nobody was really the authority.
So as big as Texas football is, back in the early 60s, it was not really looked at. It wasn't as closely followed as it is today.
Not in a comprehensive way, right? You know, the big schools were for sure, but not in a comprehensive way. So he wanted to take it all and put it under one roof, as it were. And so he built Dave Campbell's Texas Football, and the first issue was 1960. And it was a magazine that came out on an annual basis. That really was the
once a year.
It came out once a year, comes out in the summer before the football season. It is a preview of every high school and college in the state. And really in this state has become kind of the official start of football season. When that magazine hits on the newsstand, that's the signal, man, that it's time.
It's time to get going. It's to lace them up and strap it on because football season's about to begin.
I mean, it's a labor of love, obviously. He's a really good businessman. He had so many amazing stories from following and covering Texas football for so many years. We lost him a couple years ago, and you know, we've got a great cast of talent and faces for Texas football, but you know, we'll always miss Dave, man. This is all about him, and it's he's always been writing a love letter to Texas high school and college football, and we just keep that going.
It's like, I think it's sometimes hard for people to get a sense of how big a deal football is in the state of Texas. And it's people are fans of the pros and fans of college, fans of high school, but in Texas, it's just next level, right? It's really tied into the fabric of the state and its identity. I'm wondering if because you've been working with the organization since 2014, I'm wondering if you just have a story of your own that just gives people a sense of just how big a deal football is in the state of Texas.
Yeah, I mean, the easiest way to tell that is to come out in December to the state championships.
Okay.
Here at AT&T Stadium.
So you play the state championships in the Death Star, in the Dallas Cowboys football stadium.
Yeah, it does move a little bit, but it's been at AT&T Stadium for the last few years. It's pretty centrally located for all the various schools can get. We have a big state, right? So it's got to be centrally located, and you want to have a roof on it so you don't have weather issues. But
like the sleet you're currently experiencing.
Yeah, exactly. Outside. It's an amazing event. So it's 4 days of football, 12 games, 24 teams. And we've averaged over 200,000 fans for those 4 days.
For
Okay.
high school
So
football.
yeah, you ask like how big a deal is it? Well, high school football is a big deal in
Right.
Florida. High school football is a big deal in Georgia and Ohio and California. I mean, great talent, amazing talent, right? But if you look at just in attendance, you look at the differences. It's apples and hand grenades
That
difference,
is a
right?
very dangerous metaphor you just came up with.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I had to keep it family friendly, and then
That's true. This podcast is followed widely by families.
oh, excellent. My core audience for sure. Yeah, so the attendance numbers here, you don't believe it till you see it, right? We'll have a game, one of our bigger school games will be in the 40s and even the 50,000 just for one game, right? And which is bigger than most bowl games, obviously.
Yeah.
So it's a serious deal. But Dave, big as the state championships are, Friday night in the middle of Timpson, Texas, or Abilene, or El Paso, or Friendswood, it's amazing, man. The whole town shuts down. There's a rivalry up in Sherman. They play Denison every year, and that's one of the longest, if not the longest, rivalry in the state of Texas. And I went to that game a few years ago, and they literally, it's like the cliche, but it's true. They shut downtown because you park downtown to go to the stadium because there's not enough parking at the stadium. And obviously it's standing room only. And those are the fun, those are the really fun, it's big in small towns, Friday night lights, that whole bit. But it is amazing, and it is true.
It does kind of evoke that romanticism, I think, that we all have about sports and community and like you said, Friday Night Lights, about the ability to bring people together to rally around something, which I think is like the ideal that we have at sports. Sometimes get lost with all the money that gets poured into sports now and things like that, but it really feels like Dave Campbell has a major part in focusing on that sort of the history, the legacy, and the things that people really find wonderful about sports. Is that accurate, would you think?
Yeah, I hope so. We take it real seriously. We amplify the positives. Right. Our content team focuses on the good stories and the great connections with those communities you mentioned. The head football coach, the athletic director, we think and hope, and we do a good job. They're our best friends. They're an advocate of us, and vice versa.
There's so much history with the organization too. I mean, they grew up with it, I'm assuming.
100%. Yeah. If you walk around and you talk to somebody that grew up here, played football here in high school, they remember what year they were listed in the magazine.
They cut out the pages.
It's like a who's who. Yeah, they kept the page, they kept the magazine. A lot of people collect the magazine. But if you're in a lot of times I'm talking to, on a sponsorship side, and you meet somebody that played football, in Alito back in, 1997, and they'll remember, oh man, I was in the magazine, and my mom kept that magazine. Awesome, right? It's great for us, and it just has that legacy to it. That's always been service.
Well, let's talk about that for a minute, because you are in charge of sales and marketing for the organization. Can you talk a little bit about your outreach to prospective partners when you're getting them up to speed on Dave Campbell and what the company can deliver? I mean, I'm assuming, like we just talked about, there's so much history and legacy that's imbued in the organization at all. I imagine that assists you, but I'm wondering if you can go dive in a little bit into your partnership outreach process.
Well, so Dave Campbell's is a media brand, right? So we have a print magazine that'll come out forever. Right. It'll be on the newsstands. We have subscriptions, and we sell ads into that, just like anybody would. That used to be the only revenue was the newsstand and the ads, right?
Pretty straightforward stuff.
Pretty straightforward, man. And magazines have changed a great deal. Just a bit. So we've changed with it. And so we certainly have media to sell. We have a very big, robust social following, over 100,000 plus on Twitter, 100,000 plus on Facebook, very active audience, which is nice. We've put a lot of resources into texasfootball.com. So when the magazine covers the preview of the season, and that comes out once a year, and that's 400 pages, and it's
Oh my gosh,
awesome.
it's a telephone book.
Yeah, it's a Texas
Yeah.
history book, right? It's big. And but the TexasFootball.com is covering it all year round. So from a media perspective, those are some of the conversation starters that we have, that audience reach. But really bigger than that, and something that we've changed over the course of time since I've been here, is doing more sponsorship collaboratively with the schools that fall all around the state, right? And I give you an example. Good audience for us, or good, I guess, sponsor pitch and elevator pitch for us is we get to a company, like we have a great partner in Texas Farm Bureau Insurance. They have agents all over the place, and they happen to be bigger in smaller towns.
So it's very visible for them.
Very much. And so what we can do for them is we can connect them very specifically with a school in their area, with an agent that really cares about maybe the Paris, Texas team, but also has agents in other remote locations or smaller locations. And we build an umbrella campaign around that, right? We do a lot of award platforms, a quarterback of the week, team mom of
and
the
link
week,
everybody up to those
and connect it, right? And so we're, again, for the schools, we're amplifying some real positive people in their community, and that matters, because I think our voice does matter. Is that at the end of the day, you're in sponsorship sales. It's like you got to figure out how to differentiate yourself. And for us, we think we're really good in the grassroots. We're really good connecting to those communities. And we're really good giving a marketing director or CMO an umbrella campaign, so they can control high school sports. It's hard to control high school, man. There's a lot of people that buy.
That is a lot of moving parts.
Yeah, well, it's herding cats. It's really, really hard, man. It's really hard. Well, and if you're the marketing director at a company that has a bunch of different retail locations or agents or whatever, salespeople in the field, they all have their own little deals, right?
Yeah.
Because they know the high schools. That's great. That's awesome. They should still do that. But what we offer them is some consistency, right? As a platform, say, hey, we're going to do the same thing in this community that we're going to do in that community. And then the brand they can obviously control the messaging better that way.
Yeah, it takes them out of that whole patchwork of putting all these separate deals together with one sort of umbrella organization that can bring it all and bring the consistency. I'm interested also, too, because you are working with a lot of small towns. You are working with organizations that exist in the outer reaches, as well as obviously the big ones, too.
Yeah.
There's been so much change in media. And you brought it up earlier, right? It used to be just the magazine once a year. Then it became, the social platforms have become more important. Has that created opportunities for the organization by branching out into all the different digital pieces as well? Or does it create unique challenges?
Yeah, both. But I think, when we really put our shoulder into Dave Campbell's Texas football, I grew up as a fan of it, but I want it to last another 60 years, right? I want it to last in the future. The only way to do that is to transform it. And so the delivery method is changed big time, right? The website, we have a daily podcast, Texas Football Today, that we're talking to high school coaches every day of the week, right? We have a college football podcast.
You can find it on Apple iTunes, I'm assuming.
Absolutely.
Or your favorite podcast platform.
Oh, exactly. Thank you for that plug. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
And we have a bunch of really good, young, talented folks that are knocking out. So podcasting is obviously big in the industry. We're on a podcast. It's big. It's growing. We're right there. We bought a streaming company. So live streamed events, massively important. Obviously, they're growing at every level. And we're really fortunate to be able to jump into that the last couple of years. So that's been a real growth area for us. So if you're paying for a subscription to Dave Campbell's, you're getting more than just the magazine, right? You're
access to everything.
You're watching live games, you're watching live events. And that is growing every week, every year now for us. we also have a game day app. So we bought an app, and the app allows fans to keep score or basically update the score of the game they're at. So
Okay. Yeah.
you're sitting at a stadium.
You're a reporter.
There's no way really to track high school football moment by moment, right?
No.
Your local news station does it, but they just do it really locally, right?
Right.
This app is fantastic, man. We're getting 50, 60,000 uniques every Friday night. People around the state are updating the scores and keeping up with the time of the game, and that's fun. So those are some of the ways, man, we've grown it.
It kind of brings up an interesting point though too, because we've been talking a lot about changing consumption habits and how Dave Campbell has shifted in order to make sure it's addressing how people want to consume their information about football in the state of Texas. But it's not just about consumption, right? It's like you said, I mean, now people can be sitting in the stands, entering the scores into the app, but they can also create their own production, right? I mean, when you began in 2014, content creation has become everybody's basically a walking around producer right now. They have a cell phone and an idea. They are a media company. Is it challenging for Dave Campbell to remain the most relevant voice in this time and day when everybody can basically do it any given time?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have, brand avidity for every coach that grew up with it, right? But there's always younger coaches, and it's a pass along deal. So that legacy is important, and that's why our new voices, our young voices, if you will, are super important to the brand. We connect, I think, very deeply with that. But I could be on Facebook Live showing you a game too, right? And that happens, and that's fine. So, the way we look at it is, we're the ESPN for high school football in this state. We amplify the positives, and we'll always stay with that message. But yeah, it's a challenge. You have to keep innovating, have to do the right thing over and over again. I think we've done that. I mean, we've kind of, Dave started it, and I think we followed pretty well on that. And I think our brand in Texas is as relevant as Whataburger and Dr. Pepper, and HEB.
Signature Texas brands, and you just made my stomach grumble.
Yeah, those are Texas brands, man. We feel like Dave Campbell's is right there with them, and that's important. And there's a lot at stake there too, big time.
I'm wondering, before you were with Dave Campbell, you were at TCU, right?
Yeah,
you were selling partnerships for IMG College now. I mean, now obviously owned by Learfield. Yeah. Did you have is that a substantially different approach when you're representing a property that's just bricks and mortar versus something that is much more media focused?
Yeah, the big change is, so when you're at a college property or even a pro property and you are worried on a daily about wins and losses, right? Because you win, it's an easier conversation than the opposite all the time, right? You chase your stuff and you do your blocking and tackling stays the same. But in the high school side, I really don't care about the wins and losses, right? I mean, the community is what our focus is. So I'm okay if a team wins or loses on that end, but my focus is the fact that we can touch everybody in Texas, right? So that's a big change in how we deal. The opposite, I guess, is I don't run a stadium. Right. I didn't run TCU Stadium, but I had signage at the stadium.
You had real tangible pieces.
I had certain tangible pieces at the stadium that I, could lean on. In the team, we rent AT&T Stadium. We have signage elements there and other venues around the state. We do. But on Friday night, I don't own the stadium, and I never would tell a sponsor we do. We try to connect, right? And we're there and we're gone, but we're not there every week at that particular local stadium, okay?
Right.
That's the Booster Club. That's what they do. We want them to be successful. So we come in to amplify and spotlight, and then we'll do another one next week and another one next week. And over the course of the year, we'll do literally hundreds of activations, and very successfully. But that's a lot different than selling that property. When you're at TCU, you're big in Fort Worth. You're pretty big in the Dallas-Fort Worth area in a region, but you're competing pretty heavily with UT and A&M and everybody else, Cowboys, Rangers, all this stuff. With the high school space, again, I'm kind of big on Friday night everywhere. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, Austin
You are
Westlake
Rudy
is a
Klancnick.
big
You are
deal.
big
Yeah,
on
I'm
Friday
not.
night.
I'm not at all. No, I shouldn't say that. But it is it. You know, Texas high school football has its own ecosystem, right? And so that's a little different. That's a little different.
You just cast a much wider net.
Yeah, more relevant. Again,
Yeah.
in a in an affordable, efficient way for a marketer. But yeah, again, high school is hard to sell, man. I mean,
Yeah.
it is hard to sell. It is really the hardest thing I've ever sold, right?
Is it really?
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. We have a great message. I think we had a lot of track record. We show case studies and all the stuff we've done, and we've got some really good case studies on that. But at the end of the day, man, you're calling somebody talking about high school sports. They get the Cowboys, they get a concert, they get TCU, right? High school, they're like, what do you mean? What is
It's fascinating to me though too, because as we talked about at the top of the whole thing, right? I mean, literally there's a book, a TV show, and a movie about Friday Night Lights, right? I mean, it's
yep,
that ingrained into the public consciousness about how big a deal high
yeah,
school sports in Texas is. And it's still, you
yep.
feel like getting people's arms around what that means.
If we had this company, we wouldn't have started this company in, no offense, but we wouldn't have started this company in Utah, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's like,
All you listeners in Utah, just settle
yeah,
down.
Texas, it is the
Hmm.
heartbeat of the state.
Right.
So we know that. But after I get past that first, like, oh yeah, I used to watch Friday Night Lights, or I love the
Hmm.
movie, I read the book, I love the TV show, I love Riggins, all that stuff. It's like, well, what are you selling, right? It's
Yeah.
like you don't have necessarily a really easy sell if you make it about assets. We make it about audience, right?
Hmm.
We make it about engaged audience and passionate and authentic. And we
Hmm.
really make it about the word authentic
Right.
because that is Friday Night Lights. Like
It
the
doesn't get
people
much
that,
more authentic than that.
well, look, man, the people that watch Friday Night Lights typically and talk about it are not from Texas, right? And
Hmm.
that's like watching Dallas back in the day, and they equated that with that's the entire state, right?
You're dating yourself.
No, I know, but it's the same. No, it's the same. It's exactly the same because when I talk to people, it helps us for
Right.
sure. And it gives them some kind of gives them a directional. It's like,
Yeah,
oh, I
sort of a
know it's
frame
a
of
big
reference.
deal. I know
Yeah.
it's a big deal, right?
Yeah.
And then I'll say, well, we had 225,000 fans at the state championship, and it was like, oh, really? Is that true? And it's like, well, you come see, and we can prove that every time. So it does help to be here and see it. But those shows and that type of heritage definitely helps. Yeah,
I mean, it's also fascinating too, because your responsibilities don't stop with sports, right?
for
Because
sure. Yeah,
Sports in Action also represents the University Interscholastic League.
yep,
And that's the that's the governing body for all
yep.
extracurriculars in all Texas public high schools, right? I mean, that's everything from debate to marching band to sports and everything in between. I mean,
Yep.
that's a vast portfolio. And I'm curious, like when you look at something that big, how do you distill that down to potential partners? Is that more of the same? It's like authenticity and everything like that, or do you have to
For
approach it more
sure.
broadly?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's somewhat more the same, but so our relationship with the UIL, we are their exclusive rights holder. We've been that
Hmm.
for quite some time, and recently re-signed with them for a long-term deal. So we're really excited about that. Great relationship with those folks, and the great thing about it is not just athletics. Athletics is awesome, and
Right.
the football game I'm bragging about is awesome, right?
That's the
But
pinnacle.
yeah, it's the pinnacle, but the marching band competition in San Antonio, the academic meets in Austin, the cheerleading in Fort Worth. I mean, there's so
Hmm.
much going on, and you get to get around these different kids and different focuses. UIL robotics is a big deal. There's so many different kind of tentacles to that. Those are championship events. So the way I look at it is like we'll sell a brand on the use of the mark, just
Hmm.
like an IMG or
Yep.
a Learfield would sell the use of the Alabama mark or TCU mark. The UIL mark means something in this state, right? Pretty much anybody that's got a kid in high school is probably involved in some UIL activity, right? Some
Right.
sanctioned activity. So the UIL mark matters.
And it's
The
a point of
events,
connection to just about everybody.
it does. And the events matter, right? They're big events.
Mm-hmm.
All the events are really good, fun events. And most of the time, well, almost all the time, that championship ends. It doesn't matter what championship it is, it always ends in tears, right? You're either crying because you're happy, crying because you're sad, but
Right.
it's probably the biggest event in that community, period, right?
Yeah.
They just won a state championship in cross country, they just
Right.
won a state championship in marching band, whatever. Being a part of that as a brand, that's cool.
That's
right?
really cool. Yeah.
That's cool. And that's what we really focus on on the UIL front, for sure. Where the Dave Campbell's, and we've utilized them both together because we've had campaigns that's every week during the football season that lead up to the state championship.
Right.
Right. Those work really well together. And we've done that numerous times. So the brand is getting activation and media during the season.
Mm-hmm.
And then the season culminates, in football's case, at AT&T Stadium. And now the brands gets the payoff of not only visibility, but also, on-field activation or maybe a fan fest, whatever.
Yep.
It leads up, right? So that's been a really effective tool for us.
And partners' expectations have probably changed even in the time that you've been doing this as well, right? With so many people focused on, what's the latest 3-letter acronym that we want to put against this, whether it's ROI or KPIs. I think I saw another one the other day. I can't recall. Has that landed on you and their expectations for what their relationships with Dave Campbell look like, and how are you addressing that if it does?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the more media that we market, the more complicated it gets, right?
Sure. Yeah.
How many people are consuming a stream of a basketball game on a Tuesday night? Well, it's not that many, right? So, we have to look at that combined number, right?
The totality.
And together, it's an amazing number. So it's, again, high school is somewhat hurting cats, and
Right.
to get big numbers, to have those conversations, the ones you're saying. I think we bring it, but you have to keep understanding what's going to be demanded of it, and and kind of go into it understanding that and approach it that way. But yeah, I mean, we definitely have, just like everybody in this business, you're definitely dealing with more demanding clients, which is good. They should be, right? A sign is a sign is a sign, right? It's awesome and it's part of a package. But even when I was at TCU, I mean, if I could just sell signs and a few radio spots and that was my job, I would have really enjoyed the football games, because TCU is really good. They were good when I was there. They're great now. But that's not the job. I mean, it's really connecting, man. These people want to connect with a college program. They want to connect locally. If they're not feeling that connection, it's just not working for you.
So the other thing I want to talk about real quickly too is there's a tremendous amount of money obviously pouring into sports at all levels. And we've certainly seen it at the pro level, huge media rights deals, both pro and college, conference realignment based on revenue. Name, image, likeness is impacting athletes, college level and now high school level as well. It's impacting recruiting and how kids are going out and responding to recruiting. I'm wondering how, if at all, this has impacted your role and how you're going out to market. Are partners asking about how it impacts them, or how you can help them leverage some of these new opportunities?
We haven't seen it a ton yet. There are states that are allowing NIL. I know California does. I hope Texas never does, by the way. It's silly and it's not going to work very well, in my opinion.
Clearly not a fan.
No, it won't have. I mean, in high school, it's really difficult, but we'll see, right? Things will change. I think we haven't experienced any issues with that yet. We've talked a lot about high school. The magazine's cover every year is college. 200 pages is college. we just put a lot of resources into some new additions to our content
Mm-hmm.
team. So I know unfortunately, a lot of media companies have been cutting back. Sadly, we're really stepping forward with adding to our college
Hmm.
content. So recruiting and just covering the state of Texas like no one's business, that's going to be a big emphasis for us. Obviously, NIL, transfer portal, those topics are going to be the most important topics in college sports for sure.
Something we didn't even know what it even meant just a couple of years ago. Now are central to the conversation.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And look, high school kids are really smart about it. They want to position themselves to be in the best position when they go to University of Texas or Texas A&M or Baylor, TCU, whatever. They want to position themselves that they have a good
Right.
opportunity, right, to build on their brand. So they're building their brand big time in high school, and there's companies that certainly are helping them with that. We've talked about that as a part of our brand. Everything we want to do, again, we get back to the amplify all the positives. We want to make sure we're not taking it ever. We don't want to be ever perceived as taking advantage of kids and families and any of those processes, right? It's always very
Yeah, I
positive.
suppose it goes back to part of the conversation we had about with when anybody can be a production studio. Probably the most valuable thing you have in the state of Texas is the Dave Campbell brand, and protecting that brand and
Yeah,
making sure that you're only doing things that really align with that, like you've talked about, focusing on the positivity, is becomes
yeah,
even more important.
that's exactly right. Yeah, we very important. And with all these new changes, there are going to be new opportunities. We've talked about it, looked at it, strategized about it. We'll see. I mean, it's so
Yeah.
early on. Things have changed already drastically over just the last 2 years. If you think about it, it's like the transfer portal is so important in the college space.
It's
And,
crazy.
used to be that it was like the kids that were transferring were considered damaged goods. Now they're considered like free agents.
Well, they talk about winning the transfer portal.
Yeah, it's overnight that's
Yep.
changed. I mean, we talked a lot about TCU. I mean, Coach Dykes, incredibly smart and was ahead of it when he was at SMU, right? He's going to have that same success. He's already had it at TCU, right? Great places to come play football. But also, a lot of kids from Texas maybe left to go play at
Right.
Alabama or Michigan or whatever. And maybe they're homesick. Maybe they're just not playing as much. Maybe coming back here makes
Looking for the new
sense.
opportunities.
He was super smart
Right.
early to do that, and the success is obviously the success. So yeah, a lot of changes. I think we'll see it more on our college content, and then we'll figure out a way to make it make sense for us and our brand. I think from a business standpoint moving forward.
You mentioned when we got started that Dave Campbell, I mean, the man who was behind all of this, passed away recently. He was 96
Yeah,
when he passed away in
yeah.
2021. I'm wondering, as we're wrapping up, if you have anything that you can tell us about your interactions with him and what he
Yeah.
sort of what was he like and what he really meant to football fans in the state of Texas.
Yeah, he's awesome. So this is a guy that fought in the Battle of the Bulge,
God.
and is in the Texas, not only in the Texas Sports Hall of Fame, but there's actually his desk, his typewriter, and a mannequin of Dave Campbell in the Texas Sports Hall of Fame, just so you
My
know.
God.
So incredible. But I got a lot. I really cherish the time. I used to help drive him. We drive him to the coaching school every year,
Mm,
whether it was in San Antonio or Houston. So you're with him for a few hours. Texas is big. It's
right. You do get
can't
some
get
drive time
anywhere.
in.
Can't get anywhere fast. But we had a lot of time to talk, and his stories are incredible. His stories about being on the road, interacting with the legendary coaches and players in Texas, of course, are really, really cool. But the best part was when we got to coaching school, he would sign the cover or the magazine that came out that year for the coaches. And not only sign his name, but he would always personalize it. And it would cause a line to back up for sure, because it took a while, because he wanted to know where that young man played football, what he's all about. He'd get to know every coach that came up. And so the line would form, right? And it would go out the door. And those coaches wouldn't complain because they're going to get a chance to interact with Dave Campbell, right? And so
And they knew it was going to be a special moment.
It was such a neat deal. It was such a special deal. And we saw that year after year after year. And sadly, we won't see that going forward, but we'll continue the legacy for sure. But he was a special guy. And
well, Rudy Klancnick, you're a special guy too. And
wow.
Thanks for joining us today on the podcast. But one thing we have to do before I let you go is we're going to go into the lightning round. I need your quickest possible responses to the following questions, which you have not had an opportunity to review. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
All right, let's do this thing. All right, what's more intimidating, a Navy SEAL or a Texas high school football mom?
Oh, Texas high school football mom by a mile.
Okay, we should get those ready and send them out when we need them. As someone once connected to the TCU Horned Frogs on a scale with 1 to 10, with 1 being painful and 10 being excruciating, how would you score the CFP finals?
12.
Yeah, okay, sort of you've right off the scale.
Yeah.
What is your go-to Texas barbecue order?
Oh, wow. Sliced beef sandwich at Heim Barbecue.
Sliced
Heim Barbecue.
beef. What about sides?
Amazing. I mean, you got to go. I mean, the burnt ends, awesome. Mac and cheese, pretty special. Yeah. That sandwich, though, man, it'll melt in your mouth.
All right, duly noted. All right, good pull. All right, you're a lifelong Miami Dolphins fan?
Yes, sir.
Dan Marino, Larry Zonka, or Jason Taylor, pick one.
You got to go with Marino, man.
All right, that's pretty easy.
You got to go with Marino for sure. Love all those guys.
Last but not least, you can make one rule change in the NFL. I followed your Twitter account. You're not a big fan of referees. What would it be?
That's not fair.
It's totally fair.
I could change one rule.
One rule.
I would just make it 1 foot in pro and college, man.
All right, just 1 foot in. Keep it consistent.
1 foot in. Keep it consistent. We finally got the DH. We finally got the universal DH in baseball, right? We can do this. We can pull together.
As a nation, we can pull together.
We can make.
We can't let our divides overcome us.
We can't. We got to do 1 foot in, and it would make everything so much easier, don't you think?
Rudy Klancnick, advocate for the 1 foot in rule. Thanks for spending the time, Rudy.
Thanks, Dave. It's good talking to you, man.
Thanks for listening to this ADC Partners podcast. For more information about ADC Partners, please visit our website at adcpartners.com.